The MacKenzie Gore trade didn't feel catastrophic when it happened, and that's exactly why it deserves closer scrutiny. On the surface, Texas appeared to be buying certainty in a win-now window, moving a volatile arm for immediate stability. That framing made sense in the moment and played well publicly. But beneath that logic sits a far more troubling reality. The Rangers may have surrendered one of the most valuable assets in modern baseball at the worst possible time. And the longer you examine the numbers, the more this deal looks less like a calculated gamble and more like a slow-burning disaster that quietly undermines everything Texas is trying to build. MacKenzie Gore's value entering this trade window was not theoretical upside. It was measurable, bankable performance in the most constrained market in baseball. He finished the season with an ERA in the mid-threes, a FIP that tracked even lower, and an xERA that confirmed his results were supported by underlying quality rather than luck or sequencing. More importantly, he generated roughly 4 wins above replacement while throwing high-leverage innings against playoff-caliber lineups. For a left-handed starter in his mid-20s with multiple years of team control remaining, that profile is close to gold in today's MLB economy. Texas didn't move a project or a gamble. They moved a stabilized asset whose trajectory was trending upward. The immediate consequence of the trade is structural, not cosmetic. Texas attempted to convert long-term pitching certainty into short-term clarity, and that exchange almost never works cleanly over a full season. Gore was already addressing the risks teams fear most: injuries, regression, and workload volatility. His strikeout rate sat comfortably above league average, his walk rate continued to trend downward, and his fastball velocity held deep into starts despite the pitch clock environment that has challenged pitchers across the league. Those indicators matter because they are precisely what teams now pay premiums for on the open market. Comparable starters with fewer years of control and weaker underlying metrics have commanded AAVs north of $20 million, and Texas chose to forfeit that surplus value rather than leverage it strategically. What the Rangers expected in return was immediate lineup or rotation reinforcement designed to support a narrow competitive window. But the math doesn't favor that swap. Cost-controlled starting pitching is the single hardest asset to replace at the trade deadline, particularly in the American League, where postseason paths increasingly punish shallow rotations. By moving Gore now, Texas didn't just lose his innings, they lost insulation. Every start he would have taken must now be redistributed to arms with higher variance, greater injury risk, or heavier financial cost. That effect compounds over a season. Bullpens absorb more stress, leverage appearances rise, and marginal wins quietly slip away without a single dramatic moment signaling what went wrong. League reaction reflected that reality almost immediately. Executives around baseball recognize that young starters who miss bats, suppress hard contact, and carry remaining control years are rarely moved unless a team is forced by circumstance. Texas wasn't forced. They chose to act. In doing so, they accepted the illusion of certainty while discarding one of the few assets that actually provides it. This is why the trade resonated so sharply across front offices. It wasn't viewed as bold or creative. It was seen as misaligned with how value is currently priced in the sport. This trade matters now because it collides with the exact pressures Texas is facing in the American League, where the margin between hosting a postseason series and missing October altogether has narrowed to a handful of wins. Over the past 2 seasons, the difference between the final wildcard spot and the first team out has often been fewer than 3 games. In that environment, reliable starting pitching is not a luxury. It is the currency that stabilizes everything else. Gore's ability to take the ball every 5th day, miss bats, and limit damage provided Texas with structural margin. Removing that margin immediately raises volatility across the entire roster. The timing is especially damaging because of how innings are being distributed league-wide. The pitch clock has shortened recovery windows, pushed starters out of games earlier, and increased bullpen workloads across both leagues. Texas already leaned heavily on its relief corps in high-leverage spots, and Gore's presence reduced that burden by consistently navigating lineups into the 6th and 7th innings. Without him, more games shift into bullpen-dependent outcomes, where variance spikes and win probability becomes harder to control. Over a full season, that erosion shows up in the standings even if the replacement level production looks acceptable in isolation. From a divisional perspective, the trade also alters Texas' competitive posture relative to its peers. In divisions where offenses fluctuate and run prevention often decides series, losing a cost-controlled left-handed starter creates matchup disadvantages that didn't previously exist. Gore's profile, strikeout ability paired with improving command, was particularly valuable against lineups built to punish early count mistakes. His absence forces Texas to either overextend other starters or accelerate usage of arms not yet proven at that workload, increasing injury and regression risk precisely when the schedule tightens. When you compare Gore to the pitchers Texas now has to rely on, or would have had to acquire later, the scale of the mistake becomes clearer. League average starters with worse command, fewer strikeouts, and no remaining control routinely cost $18 to $22 million per year, while producing 2 to 3 WAR in good seasons. Gore was already outperforming that tier while costing a fraction of the price. XERA-adjusted metrics only widen the gap. In a high-velocity, high-strikeout league, his ability to miss bats while keeping FIP and xERA aligned places him closer to top-of-rotation value than mid-rotation filler. The deeper context explains how this decision happened. Texas has operated under increasing pressure to capitalize on a competitive window shaped by recent spending, postseason expectations, and public perception. That urgency can distort valuation, especially as payroll commitments tighten flexibility. But sustainable contenders don't trade away stability for optics. Gore's age curve, arbitration timeline, and underlying indicators made him one of the few pitchers whose future value was more likely to increase than decline. Trading that profile now reflects a misread of market scarcity and internal risk tolerance. The future implications are where the damage compounds most severely. Projection models consistently place Gore in the 3 to 5 WAR range for several more seasons, with upside beyond that as command continues to stabilize. Losing that profile forces Texas into reactive roster construction, overextending starters, accelerating unproven arms, or paying premium prices for inferior replacements. Teams that retain controllable pitching preserve leverage at the deadline. Texas surrendered that leverage early, and regaining it will be costly. When you step back and evaluate the MacKenzie Gore trade in full, the problem isn't that Texas took a risk. It's that they took the wrong kind. They didn't gamble on upside, they gambled against stability. In a league where controllable starting pitching has become the most valuable and scarce commodity, the Rangers willingly removed one of the few assets that reduced variance across an entire season. History suggests that when teams do that, the cost doesn't appear all at once. It accumulates quietly until the window they were trying to protect begins to close.